Between late 2018 and March 2020, the world watched in horror as South Korea's Nth Room case unfolded. Telegram groups trafficking in videos and images of women and children shocked the international community. But what if I told you that another Nth Room was happening around at the same time, in a different part of Asia? And this time, the world barely noticed. Today we're looking at a case from Indonesia. In May 2025, someone stumbled across a Facebook group with 32,000 members. And the group's name was Fantasi Sedarah, which translates to incestuous fantasy. Inside, thousands of people were sharing their desires for blood relatives, regardless of age. This is the case that shocked Indonesia, but never made international headlines. This is the case where women and children of all ages were violated by the very people meant to protect them. This is Indonesia's Nth Room case, also known as the Facebook incestuous group case. On May 14, 2025, a Twitter post from what looked like a regular Shopee affiliate account started making waves across Indonesia. Most people thought it was clickbait, but it wasn't. Around the same time, a TikTok account picked up the same story, and suddenly everyone was talking about it. The discovery was simple but devastating. A public Facebook group with over 30,000 members had been found. But what made this group national news? It was Indonesia's answer to the Nth Room, Fantasi Sedarah, a place where people gathered to share their darkest desires about their own family members, even children as young as 2 years old. From the very beginning, this group was never what you'd call normal, but the posts describing children in explicit ways were just the surface. Fathers writing about waiting for their 3-year-olds to grow up so they could violate them. Teenagers describing how they sexually assaulted their mothers while they slept. Men detailing how they stole their maid's underwear to satisfy themselves. And that was just a post you could see. The group wasn't just a place to talk, it was a marketplace. Child pornography wasn't unusual here, it was the product. So we're talking about videos of sleeping children with their clothes removed, images of naked children with focus on their genitalia, stories, sometimes fictional, sometimes horrifyingly real, from men claiming to be fathers or uncles describing assaults on their daughters and nieces. And actual videos of child rape, all of it for sale, right there on Facebook. Some sellers even advertised Telegram links that would redirect buyers to private groups with exclusive content, a common workaround in Indonesia since platforms like OnlyFans are banned there. And the prices, 50,000 rupiah. That's about $3 for 20 videos. 100,000 rupiah, roughly $7 for 40 videos and pictures. That's what abuse and trauma were worth in this group. When word got out that this group existed, the Indonesian public erupted. People couldn't wrap their heads around it. Family members sexually abusing their own relatives. Parents worried their sons or husbands might be involved. Younger people worried about the victim's mental health and what this would do to them long term. With so many members exposed, everyone wanted to know, what would the police do? First, they asked Meta to shut down the group. Within 24 hours of going viral, the group disappeared. Then police moved fast, tracking down the administrators. They arrested 6 people responsible for running the operation. The first arrest came on May 17th in West Java. A man named DK, who went by Alessa Bafon and Ranta Talicia in the group. DK wasn't the main admin. He was a contributor, but one of the most prolific ones. Most of his content wasn't free. He charged 50,000 rupiah for 20 videos and 100,000 for 40 pieces of content. His motive was straightforward: lust and greed. He wanted to indulge his desires toward children while making money doing it. 2 days later, police arrested MR, the main administrator who created the group back in August 2024 under the username Nanda Krisia. As the founder, most of the evidence was found in his phone: 402 pictures and 7 videos of pornographic material. Unlike DK, MR's motive wasn't about money. He'd been looking for something to satisfy his desires, something he couldn't find on regular pornography sites, something more illegal. And he wanted to share it with people who felt the same way he did. On the same day, May 19th, 3 more arrests happened in different locations across Indonesia. MS was arrested in central Java, where he'd been trying to hide despite a bounty the internet had placed on him. He used the name Mas Bro and uploaded content regularly, including multiple videos of sexual assaults he'd committed himself. Most of his victims were children. Many were his own daughter. MS was one of the main perpetrators the public demanded be caught. MJ was arrested in Bengkulu, South Sumatra. He operated under the name Lucas and contributed by creating and storing child rape videos. During the investigation, police discovered MJ wasn't some random predator. He was already on their wanted list for child abuse, with 4 known victims tied to previous crimes. The 3rd arrest that day was KA in West Java. KA wasn't directly involved in Fantasi Sedarah, but he was linked to a group that spawned from it called Suka Duka, which means bittersweet. In that group, KA used the account Temon Temon to search the internet for child pornography, download it, and distribute it to group members. The final arrest came on May 20th in Lampung. A man named MA, who went by Rajawali. His job was to download and repost content whenever Meta took it down. Police found at least 66 pictures and 2 videos of pornographic material on his phone. Now, you might be wondering about the victims. How many children suffered because of this group? According to police statements, around 100 children were identified from the content being shared and sold. But here's the terrifying reality. With 32,000 members and countless private Telegram groups connected to the main Facebook group, the actual number of victims is likely much, much higher. We may never know the true scale of this. Indonesia is a deeply patriarchal society, where the father or oldest male typically holds authority in the household. Age determines status, and children are expected to be obedient to their parents and elders. While the system works for many families, it creates a dangerous power imbalance that predators can exploit. Children in Indonesia often lack the power to refuse or report abuse because of these ingrained hierarchies and the cultural emphasis on respecting authority figures. There's also a massive taboo around discussing anything sexual in Indonesian culture. Sex is viewed as an extremely private matter, and bringing up topics like sexual abuse, especially within families, brings shame not just to the victim, but to the entire family. This cultural stigma makes it incredibly difficult for victims to come forward. They are taught that speaking about such things could bring disgrace to the family name. So many suffer in silence. The shame factor is so strong that even when abuse is discovered, families often prefer to handle it privately rather than report it to authorities. This kind of familial abuse isn't a one-off incident. It's just what we can see on the surface. According to the National Women's Commission in Indonesia, incest consistently ranks as the highest type of crime happening in private spaces. Between 2029 and 2024, they documented 1,765 incest cases involving direct family abuse. The highest number came in 2019 with 1,071 cases alone. In 2021, reported cases dropped dramatically to just 15. Not because abuse decreased during the pandemic, but because victims found it nearly impossible to report when they were locked down with their abusers. But here's the thing, even these numbers don't tell the full story. Reporting sexual abuse in Indonesia is incredibly difficult. Many families live far from police stations or reporting centers that can provide medical and psychological care. When someone does try to report abuse at the village level, they often have to pay out of pocket to transport evidence to the district level for investigations. For poor families, this financial barrier makes an already traumatic situation even harder to navigate. Police have been criticized for being sluggish and insensitive in their investigations, and specialized police units that handle crimes against women and children, known as PPA units, have been at risk of closing due to lack of resources and low reporting rates. There's also intense social pressure against reporting. Victims, their families, and supporters have spoken about threats and intimidation from friends, family members, and even neighbors of alleged perpetrators. Witnesses get pressure to withdraw testimony mid-trial. When boys are victims, their reports are frequently dismissed under the harmful myth that men cannot be victims, which is absolutely not true. And when the abuse happens within a family, the pressure to keep quiet is even stronger. More than 80% of frontline workers surveyed in Indonesia believe that the discomfort around discussing sex and the stigma from the community actively discourage reporting. When they did tell someone, it was usually a friend or sibling, not a caregiver or the police. And Fantasi Sedarah wasn't the only group. That same month, another group called Suka Duka, Bittersweet, went viral for the same reasons. And this group had 41,000 followers, but didn't get as much media attention. Some people believe Suka Duka was just Fantasi Sedarah rebranded as a last-ditch attempt to sweep everything under the rug and throw police off their trail. One of the people arrested from this group was actually a minor. Let's call him A because we don't know his name. He was an 18-year-old student who everyone thought was a good kid with no history of trouble. But when the truth came out, it painted a very different picture. A was an active member, not just posting about his desires, but actually selling child pornography. 3 videos for 50,000 rupiah, about $3. And he wasn't just in Suka Duka. He was in Fantasi Sedarah and countless other groups. When police searched his accounts, they discovered he was a member of 144 different Telegram groups distributing child pornography. After questioning, because he was technically still a minor and had an important school test coming up, he was released back to his parents. There is no public information about whether he ever faced actual consequences after that exam, which has understandably concerned a lot of parents who worry he could reoffend. And that same month, a 44-year-old tour guide in Bali, someone fairly well known in his industry, was arrested for running yet another child pornography distribution ring. He was the main administrator and content moderator of a group called Nth Sedarah, or Blood-Related Love. Same concept, same disturbing content, videos and images of sexual assault being shared among family members. The fact that 3 major groups were exposed in the same month raised serious red flags. But hundreds of private Telegram groups were also discovered around this time, many of them selling pornographic content involving abuse and children. And this wasn't Indonesia's first rodeo with these kinds of groups. Back in March 2017, another pedophilia ring was busted on Facebook. The group was called Loli Candies, and 5 people were arrested. 27-year-old W, known as Snorlax, 24-year-old DS, 17-year-old DF, 16-year-old SHDT, and 21-year-old AAJ. The group had been created in September 2016 and had grown to 7,479 members. Each of the key administrators was reportedly managing other groups as well, all selling the same thing: videos of children being abused. During the investigation into Loli Candies, police uncovered at least 40 connected Telegram and WhatsApp groups, each with its own membership, minimum 200 people per group, and its own specialty of content. And that is just what police could find. That's the tip of the iceberg. Imagine being a victim, knowing a video of your abuse is out there, distributed across dozens of groups with thousands of members hiding behind anonymous accounts. Even if police shut down the groups, the fear that someone, someday, might recognize you in that video. That kind of trauma doesn't just go away. Child abuse in Indonesia, particularly sexual abuse, often doesn't get treated with the seriousness it deserves. Teachers touching students inappropriately gets brushed off as just his way of showing affection. In the groups we've discussed, even though most suspects were male, female members also posted disturbing things about their own sons or brothers. One video even showed a woman instructing a boy to remove his pants before touching him inappropriately. Why do these groups keep existing? Social media censorship often fails to catch them. Most platforms rely heavily on user reports, and even when people do report these groups, there's always a chance the platform won't find them offensive enough to violate terms of service. Add to that the fact that these groups usually operate through private advertising. You're not going to stumble across an invite link to one of these groups. You have to contact an admin or existing member. Often access requires payment, which creates another barrier to detection. Because of this, many people have started theorizing that there's something bigger behind Indonesia's Nth Room scandal. Something as large as Korea's operation, maybe larger. Some internet users have tried connecting it to online gambling rings, because these platforms sometimes attach their logos to pornographic content, including abuse videos. So the theory goes that gambling sites use this content as advertising, a way to draw in users through shock value and illicit material. Between October 2024 and March 2025 alone, the Indonesian Ministry of Communication and Digital Affairs removed over 1.3 million pieces of content related to gambling and pornography. The scale is staggering. 1.1 million of those were gambling related, and nearly 50,000 instances were found on Meta's platforms, Facebook and Instagram. Indonesia is currently facing what officials are calling a dual crisis: an online gambling emergency and a child pornography emergency. According to the Indonesian Child Protection Commission, in 2024, police uncovered 47 child pornography cases involving 58 suspects in just 6 months. They also blocked over 15,000 online pornographic websites. The connection between gambling and exploitation isn't just speculation. Financial records show money flowing between these illegal operations, and many of the same platforms that host gambling also traffic in abuse material. But proving these connections is difficult because much of the evidence gets deleted or vanishes before investigators can secure it. As for Fantasi Sedarah specifically, people have questioned whether it's even possible for just 6 people to manage a group that large, especially one connected to so many other groups across different platforms. And here's something strange. After those 6 administrators were arrested, the news just stopped. Coverage peaked in May and early June 2025, then went completely silent. The suspects were prosecuted under multiple Indonesian laws dealing with electronic information, transactions, and pornography, facing maximum sentences of 15 years in prison and 6 billion rupiah in fines. Now, Indonesia does have laws on the books to protect children. Law number 23 from 2002 established children's rights to protection and rehabilitation from sexual exploitation. Law number 35 from 2014 expanded the definition of sexual crimes and increased punishments. The government even created a national movement against child sexual violence, coordinating work between national police, the Attorney General, and 12 ministries. On paper, the framework exists, but there are massive gaps between what the law says and what actually happens. The government doesn't provide rehabilitation specifically tailored for child victims of sexual abuse. Services are limited by insufficient resources, weak coordination, and lack of reach to rural areas. And there are inconsistencies in the laws themselves, like deferring minimum ages for marriage across religious groups, that create loopholes and make it harder to protect children uniformly across the country. The Women and Child Protection Commission promised support for victims, which is admirable. But with 32,000 members and potentially thousands of victims, that help is a drop in the ocean. Most victims will never get counseling. Most will never see their abuser face consequences. Most will spend their entire lives trying to rebuild themselves while living in the same house as the person who destroyed them. And that's the reality we need to sit with. This isn't a story with a neat ending. 6 arrests don't erase 32,000 predators. 1 blocked Facebook group doesn't stop hundreds of Telegram channels. Maximum sentences on paper don't guarantee actual justice. The victims aren't healed. The problem isn't solved. And if we're being honest, nobody in power seems particularly interested in solving it. These victims are still living with this trauma every single day. These predators are still out there. These groups are still operating. And until we're willing to have uncomfortable conversations about family dynamics, patriarchal power structures, cultural shame, and platform accountability, until we're willing to admit that the call is coming from inside the house, nothing will change. Sometimes the most dangerous predators aren't strangers in vans offering candy. They're the people we're taught to trust unconditionally. They're family. And until we're ready to acknowledge that truth and protect children, even when it means challenging deeply held cultural beliefs, cases like this will keep happening. So what do you think? Are we doing enough to protect children, or are we more comfortable looking away? That is all for today. Thanks for watching.